Hello my friends, how are you doing? This is the online course for the Glorious Light Pack and I'm super excited to talk about it because first of all it was super much fun to create it, but also it's so much fun to use it, and I want to show you how to do that in detail. So when you watch my live stream, you maybe have seen that my original plan was to do a lot of styles and you can simply apply them. But then it turned out if I have all these color variations of the gradients and then also the styles, that would be just as styles, super complicated, not very customer friendly. So I found a much better solution for you. So I want to show you the basic elements this is built of. First of all, you have some very basic master styles that you can use, and basically it's just two different styles, and the only difference between the styles is how much the shape is blurred and also the blend mode. And I did this for the reason that you can see you could potentially use them with these blend modes, or these blend modes are basically suggested to be used. I found that hard light works the best with the pack. And then up here we have different gradients that you can use and apply to the styles. So that is pretty cool, because then the very easy and nice and positive thing is you select a style and everything stays the same, but just the colors change. So you can work really intuitively, really quickly. So I created 3 different categories of gradients for this pack. One is called the Glorious Light Neon Pop. As you can see here, these are different kind of neon lights that I picked from really cool, amazing pictures that have neon light in them. Then we have our Glorious Light Sun Glows, which is in the biggest pack size, 40 different sunshine effects, which again, I picked from really great pictures and also tested it with different photos to get this kind of sunshine effect in there. And it's really interesting if you work with sunlight to find out that it can have a lot of different qualities, and light is not always bright. Light can be also darker, it can be heavy, it can be moody. There's a lot of different variation in there, and it's kind of like a language that you can put onto your picture to make it into a bit of a poetry of expressing what you want to show in the picture. So that's really cool, and was really fun to experiment with that, to create that, also to work with that. And then finally, I create something that I called Glorious Light Ambient Sheets. And this is basically you create a rectangle over your picture, set it to soft light, and then you can use these colors to change the ambient light of the picture. And this will enable you either to support the light that you are applying afterwards, or to go in contrast with that, which is also interesting because you can bring out the mood of the light even more. For example, you have a nice warm light on one side, but you want to have the ambience of the rest of the picture rather cooler. You can do it with these ambient sheets. So that's a lot of fun to use and experiment with, of course. Okay, so let's have a look at how does it actually work. Well, the first thing you're going to do is to create an ellipse with your ellipse tool. Let's drag this out. It's just an ellipse, nothing special. Okay, so the first thing you're doing is you click on one of these styles that I've created. And one is called Shine. And basically these are the same as the first one, just with different blend modes, as I've explained. So you can see you can also use these blend modes. You click on them and you can see now the ellipse is gone. It's still there, but it has a lot of blur on it. It already has a gradient on it, but you can still change the gradient, no problem. And it already has a blend mode on it, which is called hard light in this case. And hard light compared to screen, if you look at this, screen is bright, but it loses a lot of the color of the gradient, while hard light is not as bright, but it preserves a lot of the color. So this looks a lot more like a nice shining light. Okay, so let's move this up here and you can see, wow, you already created kind of a light just by creating an ellipse and clicking on this master style for shining hard light. So that's pretty cool. And now you can switch through our neon pop lights, which are thought for these night pictures, for these darker pictures where you want to have artificial light, you want to add artificial light to them, or intensify the light that you find already in the picture. But as you can see here, the picture doesn't really have the orange light, but now it feels like it had the orange light in there. So that's pretty cool. By the way, before we go on, I want to explain something to you that is very interesting. Let's make this a bit bigger and go up here to the format. And I want to switch this over to RGB 8-bit, which is the normal bit size or depth of a picture in JPEG. And when I do that, maybe not here. Oh yeah, here, you might be able to see some stripes in here. And these stripes are called the banding effect. And what that means is, if two colors that are kind of close to each other try to blend from one color to the other, but the bit depth of the picture doesn't have enough steps to facilitate this as a smooth blending, what the picture does is it starts to develop these kind of steps, and they are called banding. So if you have that, if you see that in your picture, just go up here to Document and then to Convert Format, ICC Profile, and you switch it over to 16, even to 32 if you like, but I found that 16 in most cases is more than enough. So let's click on that, Convert, and you will see now the blending is very smooth. My cat is here, I'm sorry. Whoop. Okay, good. And of course, when you export it as a JPEG, it's going back to 8-bit, but it will be converted into a bit of a noise instead of the bending. So it looks a lot smoother and a lot better. Okay. And also you might have realized that, oops, when you resize these, they are getting brighter and darker. And this is based on the fact that the blur is taking away. So here, a lot of the stuff is blurred, while here, not so much is blurred relative to the size of it. You can, of course, if you want to change that, you can go to Effects here. And then you don't have a cogwheel here. Let's go into another effect. Here you have one. You can click on that and you can say Scale with Object, and then all the values will scale with object. I didn't do that on general because I really like this kind of ability to make it brighter or darker depending on the scale that you're using here. Okay, cool. So let's zoom in here so you see a little bit more of what I'm doing. And you can see now, let's go back to layers. We can switch through these different colors and have very nice light effects on our pictures. You can see here, I tried to have these kind of neon looking artificial lights. So these are not natural lights, of course. Some are brighter, others are more muted. So it really depends on the kind of picture you have. So I also want to point out, not every gradient works with every picture, which is completely normal, but you need to understand that there might be gradients where you say, hey, this doesn't work. But then in another picture, you think like, wow, they work really great with that. So try them out with different pictures and see what they do for you. So they can be really interesting. So for example, let's switch over to another picture here with this nice woman. And you can see here in the original picture, we have these lights in the background, in the foreground, but you can of course now change the light situation in the pictures. You can move this in here and suddenly we have some very nice warm orange values in the background, and you can move this around, you can rotate it if you want, and you can turn basically into anything you want. So when you say I want to have a green or bluish background, that's okay too. Here it's more green, or you can have a really intense, like almost going into red background, or more of a pink background. And you can do a lot of very interesting things here. And also the nice thing is you can see when we move this over here, how the lights start to light up and glow when you move this over the light. So you can do some really cool and interesting things here and build up a completely new atmosphere for your photograph. So you're not too pressed to find the right lights. out there in the real world. Now you have your artificial lights, your artificial light disk, and you can just set up the mood any way you want. And just also you can duplicate these light disks if you want to put in more different light situations if you want to. So this is completely up to what you want to do with the picture. Let's look at another picture as an example. We have this very nice, I think it's in Tokyo, it's a street scene, and it is already pretty cool, but I want to have like a dreamy atmosphere here that enhances these kinds of pink and blue lights that we have in here. So what I'm gonna do is I will set up some lights of my own where already there are lights in the picture. So over here, I wanna have more of a pink light, of course. This is too much. Maybe that one. This is too much also. How does this look? That's not too bad. Okay, let's reduce this a little bit. It's a bit too strong. Let's go like this. Okay, and then I will use this and copy it over here because we have some more pink lights over here. Maybe make it a little bit thinner like that. And you can also decide, do I want to have some light on the ground or just up here? But I think the blue light on the ground is kind of nice, so I want to keep that. And then here, to contrast this, I want to put some blue light in the middle here. So let's do this. Put this in the middle. Let's see. There's some blue light. I think this works better. There we have some different one. Oh, this is some violet light. It's also nice, but maybe blue is a better contrast. So, here we have another value. No. This one is nice. Maybe we should go with this kind of violet light. That's kind of nice. Okay, I will make this a little bit smaller so it's not so bright. So as you can see, with just some clicks, we have created a really beautiful atmosphere. I want to show you one more trick you can do. Simply create a curves layer on top of everything else, sitting on top of everything else, and then you set it to blend mode soft light. And this can help make the picture more pop if you want to. In this case, makes it a bit too dark. I don't want it to be that dark, so you can reduce the opacity like this, for example, or you want even more, let's go with 30%. And the cool thing now is you still have the curves, so if you want, you can still adjust the different settings and values in the image, so that's very nice to have. Let's bundle all of these up into a group like that, so we can look at the before and after. So this is our picture before, and this is our picture after. And you can see we create some really nice dreaming light atmospheres that support what is already in the picture, and also creates a little bit of a light story in here. So we have these warmer lights at the side, and then we have the cooler blue light in the middle of the picture. So this is, for example, something you could do with the Glorious Light Pack. Play around with that, experiment. Really cool, interesting art styles. But you can, of course, do a lot more with that. So let's look down here at some other pictures that we have. Not this one. So here, as you can see, we have a nice portrait in front of a landscape. The light maybe could be nicer, so we want to play around with that. Again, you have your ellipse and you apply the style here. I already have created that, and you can see we already have some nice sunlight that's coming in here from the side. And in this case, what we can do, we can go over here to glow, and this gives a lot more blur to the same layer. So that's basically the main difference between shine and glow, is that we have more of the blur. And this means that it actually is a softer fade between the colors that we are using in our gradient. So that's very, very nice. And looks more like a glowing light rather than a shining light. It's not as harsh. And for this, of course, we want to switch over to our sun glow gradients. And you can see here now, when you click through them, you can create a lot of different light situations, light atmospheres. And as you can see, the only thing you need to do is to select your ellipse that you've created with the style on it, to go through it and see what kind of light do you want, what kind of line situations do you want to have. Of course, also I created, as you can see here, some cooler lights. So not all of them are warm lights, because of course, we have a lot of orange sunset, but then there's also pink light, there's blue light out in nature, depending on the weather conditions and the time of day, I'm sorry. And surprisingly, sometimes some lights have very dark colors in them. For example, this one has kind of a chocolate brown in here, but you can see it really has a very interesting effect still on the person, on the face, on the background, stuff like that. So that's really cool. And also, again, like I said, this depends on the picture you are taking. So for example, in this case, we have a picture that is more in kind of a sunset situation, but then we have something like this, for example, where the picture is already a lot cooler from the picture itself. So for this, let's turn on our light disk again. Maybe make it fade a little bit more into the picture like this. So you can see now, if I use these other values that are cooler and softer, they can work a lot better with the picture here and do some interesting atmospheres for this kind of situation, where the situation is more muted. It's not this kind of where you expect some kind of very warm sunset light in here. And some of them, as you can see here, for example, this, it's blown out a little bit, but this also is interesting for different photographic styles. And you don't have to have it in here. You can also move it more to the side depending on what you want to have. And again, with these, we have a lot of different variations in here, a lot of things you can do. Again, we have here some more of these kind of pink or violet lights, or also chocolate brown lights that you can use with this, that give you very interesting, but most of the time natural looking results. I also created some that look more artificial, more in the style of what you would see on Instagram, which not always uses sunlight as you would find in the nature. Sometimes it's more kind of a vintage effect, so that's also nice. And now with this picture, I also want to show you what I mean with the ambient sheets. So with the ambient sheets, what you're doing basically is you are creating a rectangle and you just pull it over the picture. We already have our gradient in here. Ignore that for the moment. So you can see here we have a rectangle over all of the picture. I would set this layer below the layer you create for your sunlight. So let's put this down here, and then we can go over to our ambient sheets and click on them, and you can see this will apply just a single color. This doesn't look right yet because what you have to do is to switch your blend mode to soft light like this. And now this is applied as an ambient color, like a feeling changing for the image. So you can see here, we can do a lot of interesting things here. And these work especially well in combination with the sunlight gradients that I've created. So you can see here, for example, if we create this and then we turn on the sunlight again, you can see how they complement each other. And also because this is now the ambient light is going over all of the picture, this of course also influences a little bit how the sunlight feels, what the color of the sunlight is. So because they both blend with each other. But you can see now, for example, here in this picture, what we have is here it's cooler, on this side is warmer, so they go in contrast with each other, but they also complement each other. It creates a very nice balance in the picture, from a lighter side to a darker side, from a warmer side to a cooler side. So you can do some really cool things in here. And like I said, it's a bit like poetry, where you basically write with the light into the picture what kind of feeling you want to have in here. The picture has very much changed, and the way you look at the picture, the story the picture tells, I feel also has changed with the light situation and with the colors that you now have in the picture. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this online course for my glorious light pack. I hope it was interesting and gave you some tools and ways to use the pack to its max and to support your creative potential. So that's very important. I want to say one last thing before I end this online course, before I forget this, is that of course you can go in here and click on the gradient tool, and then you can move the gradient around to your taste. So this is not fixed. You can always move these points around, make them bigger, make them smaller, any way you want, any way you feel like this should be, you can do that. And you can also switch from radial to elliptical. And the only difference is here now you can also use this arm to make the light elliptical and not round. So that's the main thing that this does, but you can switch back and then it's round again. Okay, cool. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this online course for My Glorious Light Pack. Have a good night or a good day and have fun with the pack, creating and being creative. See you soon. Thank you. Goodbye.